Hey guys, good afternoon. This is Dr. Michelle, and I jumped on because I wanted to give you a quick Thursday relationship motivation, right? And I want to talk about making God the threefold cord in your relationships and in your marriage, right? I want to talk about the fact that people are divorcing relationships, and then people are having a hard time, or people playing games with one another because of the simple fact that people think that relationships supposed to be easy, or perhaps the relationships don't hurt, because we have this cliche saying that love does not hurt. Well, newsflash, love can hurt. Love does hurt, and it's just not about being in a relationship one-on-one or being in marriage. Love can hurt in different forms. Your kids can hurt you, your spouses can hurt you, your friends can hurt you. Love does hurt, right? So when you get past the point that love can hurt, then perhaps we can get past this delusional state of thinking that relationships supposed to be la 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 la, dancing in the cornfields, flower fields, whatever, holding hands, and there's no ups and down, right? That's not realistic for life. So what I'm on here today to try to encourage you to make God the threefold cord in your relationship, right? And the reason I say that is because of the fact that we have become I guess, used to what society say is normal, right? That we do not go back to the foundation of what it takes to make a relationship function. If you don't have no standard, and you don't have any guidelines, and you don't have any expectations or a sure foundation of how this thing is supposed to work, then who are you going to seek wisdom from? Right? Because our minds can't figure it all out. We're not built that way. We're built to have something, an anchor to depend on, which is God. So I'm going to take it really quick to Ephesians to try to help you out with this, right? Ephesians 5 verses 21 through let me see where I'm going to stop at. Let me do this first. The first thing, 21, said, be subject to one another out of reverence for Christ, right? And you may wonder, what does that mean? Okay, it simply means exactly what it says. Be subject to one another. Be accountable to one another. So one of the things you want to do in your relationship, you want to be accountable to one another. You want to set an accountability to your partner, one to another, so that you can respect one another, but you want to do it in reverence of God, which means you want to not do it because you feel like, oh, what's going to happen? I'm fearful of God. I'm this and that. No, reverence of God is basic respect of God, right? It means having a healthy fear of God, knowing that there are consequences to your actions and the things that you do. So that is why you need a foundation, and you need God to be that threefold cord, because if you don't have any reverence towards the person that you're with, or you don't have a healthy fear of losing them, then you may do anything. You don't have any guidelines. You may go out there and screw a rabbit because you can, because there's no consequences, because you don't have a fear of losing somebody. I know. I say rabbit. That's funny to me, but you know what I mean. You just won't have any guidelines, and as stupid as that sounds, that's what I'm saying. You'll go out there and do stupid stuff because you're not subject to your partner. You're not subject to the relationship. You don't have any accountability for the things that you do. And if you're in a relationship with somebody and you're married to somebody, what happens is that you have to be accountable. And believe it or not, that person causes you to grow, causes you to be accountable, because anytime you do anything you want, you say anything you want to say, you have no guidelines, no expectations, then you're not growing. All you're doing is staying in a state of immaturity. You're not on solid foods as an adult. When it comes to having a relationship, you actually still on the breast and drinking milk because you want to do what you want to do. And that's what children do. Children have a tendency to throw temper tantrums because they want to do what they want to do. They don't want to come out of their comfortable place. They don't want to grow. They don't want to change, because that's what they are used to doing. They don't want to follow guidelines, expectations, or be held accountable. See, being accountable and taking accountability for yourself is where maturity comes in at, right? So you have to be subject to one another and have a reverence for Christ, because you can't make up your own rules. And that's what we want to do. We want to get in marriage and we want to say, I feel this is right in my spirit. Right. Well, your spirit is saying that you can stay out all night because that's what you want to do. Is that being accountable, acceptable to the person that you're married to? You understand what I'm saying? Is that being respectful? My mom, or was it my grandma used to say, ain't nothing open late at night but a pair of legs. So at some point, you need to be coming in and being respectable to your partner. If it makes them uncomfortable, then that's what you do. If they don't care and you guys got some type of arrangement, or you don't care, then to each his own. But you need some type of reverence and accountability to your partner in order for your relationship to work, right? The second thing, 22, wives, be subject to your husband as you are to the Lord. For the husband, 23, for the husband is the head of the wife, just like Christ is the head of the church, the body of which he is the Savior. So 22, wives, be subject to your husbands as you are to the Lord. That means that you should reverence, respect, and give, really have a disposition of submissiveness to your husband. And I know the word submissive rubs everybody the wrong way. If you keep on reading, if you know the Bible, really submissiveness it goes both ways. You reverence and respecting one another, the subject to one another is being submissive to one another in the same token. But this said, wives, be subject to your husband. That means that you should have loyalty, you should have respect, you should have reverence towards your husband, and you should respect your husband as you would the Lord. And I know that women be like, why am I following somebody who does not respect me? Why am I following somebody who does not talk to me correctly? Why am I following somebody who cheats on me? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Right? If you're in an abusive relationship, that's completely different. You don't have to subject yourself to abuse, no kind of form, fashion, whether it be verbal, physical, emotional, mentally. You don't subject yourself to verbal abuse, okay? I'm just going to put it right there as Dr. Michelle. It is what it is, right? But when it comes to being in a relationship that you go through things, you're going to go through things. Somebody's going to lose their temper sometimes and say the wrong thing. Some people are going to make mistakes. Somebody is going to go the wrong direction. Something is going to happen that's going to hurt you in your relationship, in your marriage, and you might as well get over that. So what it is to be subject to your husband as you are to the Lord, that means that you can't have a disposition of you got to be perfect. You did this and I'm going to hold this against you. You did this and I'm going to hold this against you. You this, but you never look at yourself. Because if you're going to be subject to your husband as you are to the Lord, that means that God forgives 70 times, asks us to forgive 70 times 70. Not to let somebody use you, dog you, abuse you, cheat on you, none of that. It means that you have to understand that you have to have a heart of a heart of forgiveness. That means you have to give people room to be themselves. That means that you have to have a heart towards them as God has a heart towards them. Right? So whether you feel like that person may make a mistake or sometimes or whatever does not give you the right to be subject over your husband or to talk to your husband in any kind of way or to treat your husband in any kind of way, to go out there and disrespect your husband or to not represent your husband. See, being subject to my husband means that I go out there and I'm representing my husband. I'm not in another man's face laughing and playing and flirting. I'm not being hoish. I'm not presenting myself as a single woman. I'm not out there disrespecting him. I'm not out there looking crazy and being any kind of way. I am subject to my husband both in his face and behind his back, which means respect goes a long ways. It is not just the verbal respect. It is the way I carry myself. And if you are concerned about how your husband is treating you and you feel like you can't be submissive to a man, that you feel like he makes this mistake or he does this, then perhaps you've chosen the wrong man. It's not who God chose for you. Because if you are a wife and you're in a relationship to be a wife, then you understand. You understand that the word says that the man is won over by the ways of his wife. You understand what I'm saying? That means that he's not looking for you to go do tit for tat, treat him in any kind of way, do anything. It is not your business, once again, how he loves you. Is your business how you love him. Because you're to be submitted to that man as you are to the Lord. So how would you submit yourself to the Lord wholeheartedly? You would be loyal to the Lord. You would be respectful to the Lord. You will honor the Lord. You know, you will be of service to the Lord. That means that if my husband asks me to get up and take his plate to the kitchen, then that's what I'm going to do. You understand what I'm saying? And I know I had somebody close to me tell me one time, I was on the phone with them, and babe was sitting right here, and he had finished eating, and I said, hold up, babe, I'm going to get your plate. I'll take it to the kitchen for you. And she said, he doesn't have two legs. And I said, yeah, he has two legs. He has two legs. He's very capable of getting up, taking his plate to the kitchen, but he works very hard. He works hard. He takes care of the family. He does what he needs to do. He's the man of this household. So if it's nothing for me to take his plate to the kitchen for him, because if we're sitting here looking at a movie, doing whatever, it's nothing for me to go get his drink for him. It's nothing for me to do those things because I honor him. As his fiance, I honor him. As his future wife, I honor him. And I am subjected to him because I don't become a wife once I get to the altar. I'm a wife before that time. You understand? He does not make me a wife when we get to the altar. I am a wife before he met me. So I am already in position. I am already made a wife. I am already subjected to him because I have that balance of having God as a threefold cord in our relationship. And that's where I set the boundary. That's where I set the expectation. That's where I look to for knowledge and vice versa. You understand what I'm saying? So be subject to your husband, right? Be subject to him. And 23 said, "For the husband is the head of the wife, just as Christ is the head of the church, the body of which he is the Savior." Okay, I hear you, woman. I hear you. Well, he doesn't do godly things. He's not very godly. He this, he that. Well, listen, let me just let you know, God is in control of that as well. The Bible says that if a man does not honor his wife, that God does not even hear his prayers. And I think that's in Hebrews, right? So what I'm doing, I'm giving you scriptures that God has already given me that I know to go with this in Ephesians, right? So in order for you to follow him, this is why it's very important for you to have a man as well that believes in God, right? Because he sets his standards and his expectations against what God says. So how can a man lead if he does not follow God? How can a man direct you if he does not know who God is? Well, guess what? Everybody doesn't start out knowing who God is. Some people don't believe in God. So what you have to do, you have to take what you know, right? And you have to make sure that you choose carefully when it comes to spouses, because you can't have one person believing in God and one not. And then if you do, that's why you have to have this Bible or some type of sound foundation to say the husband will be won over by the conversation of the wife. What does that mean? It means that your gentleness, your love, your direction, your knowledge of God, you setting the standard, the boundary, and the atmosphere is how this husband will be won over by the conversations that according to what you do. Right? How can you tell a man don't be doing this and don't be doing this and don't be doing that, but then you turn around and do it and say, but I got God on my side. At this point, he's looking at you like, I don't want nothing to do with your God, because your God is worse than what's actually going on in the street. So if you don't have God as that foundation, then what do? You have to look in as the inner person, as a good person, to understand, to maintain any relationship. The ground floor is that men look for respect. Men look for to be heard. Women look for to be seen, and and that means to be seen by their partners, right? And to have security, right? And also respect is a big thing with women as well. If that woman does not feel secure and safe, then where are you basing your foundation? If that man doesn't feel respected and heard, where are you basing that foundation at? See, you have to have something more to just, you make me feel good and I make you feel good. Because love is not always going to feel good. Love is not always going to be peaches and cream. More than likely, sometimes love is going to be rough for quite some time, because guess what? Marriage is hard and relationships are hard. So you have to have some type of foundation and some type of security in order to understand that, some type of foundation and some type of boundaries and guidelines in order for this relationship to work. For me personally, me and my man and I believe in God. So for me, it's God being a threefold cord to our relationship, which means that I understand that I know this man to some degree, a lot of degree, right? But when it comes to a man that believes in God, you know that that man has a conscience. See, he has a conscience because he believes in God. So therefore, I can believe that this man is not just going to run out and do crazy stuff because he has a conscience, because he has God to build that conscience against. You understand? I know that this man is a good person because I know that this man has the love of God in his heart. So I don't look out for this man to go and do something completely out of character and do everything crazy and kill a bunch of people and do all this type of stuff because he have the love of God in his heart. You guys understand what I'm saying? I know that this man to be a hardworking man, a good person, a loving person, a person that makes me feel safe and secure. And I base all those things on the fact that I know that he has a relationship with God. And so I can look at this man and I know this man. I know this man. I know things that he's feeling sometimes before he say it, and I just pray without saying anything. I know this man. I know that sometimes I could see certain things that bother him, and I could see when he's hurt, and I can see when he's in a good mood, and I can see when he's happy. And although sometimes I know that because I love to talk to him, I say some things sometimes just to get some conversation because I love his point of view on certain things. For the most part, I know this man. It's things that I know from being with him. You understand? So that makes the difference, a threefold relationship where when things get hard, we can get on our knees and pray to God. We can hold our hands and pray together. We can both say, you pray for me and I pray for you. It's a threefold cord that means that we're not in this thing by ourselves. See, the Bible said where one fall down, the other one can pick the other one up. So that's why it's blessed for to have for marriage, because you have two. See, marriage is a blessing before God, right? So in that case, we both serve God. We both love God, and we're stronger with God than apart. And you think we're strong with two, put God in the midst of it. And watch God push you through some things. Watch God do some things that you know it was nobody but God. So that's why we need a threefold relationship, when we need to start putting God back in the midst of these twofold relationship, because three is not easily broken. You understand what I'm saying? With God in the midst, it's not easily broken. And so that man is the head, and therefore you should honor and submit to him. But this is the thing, man should submit to God, because it is hard for a woman to follow anybody who does not have a plan and does not have God and does not have some type of foundation or stand of an expectation on how you're leading us. See, if I'm submitting to you, you submit to God, then we got a plan. We going somewhere. But if I can't submit to you and you not submitting to God, then what are we doing but brushing up with egos? I'm telling you what I think based off of what you telling me what you think based off of what are we basing our relationship on? Where is our foundation that when it gets hard, or I need to know you, or I have to question you, where is the foundation of saying we got a solid foundation? See, when the Bible says that God does not even hear a man that does not honor his wife, that's how serious God is about that. That he can't answer your prayers, because at this point you haven't made up in your mind that you will submit to God, and you may be submitting to Satan. You may be submitting to the things of the world. See, so that's how a household falls. That's how a relationship falls. That's how a relationship goes. It should be wife, husband, and God. So I'm submitting to him. He's submitting to God. We got some order. We got a foundation. We got a plan. We got something going on, right? But if you're not submitting to God, right, then how am I to submit to you when God is the Lord of my life? You understand what I'm saying? So if nobody's in order, and then you got somebody who don't want to submit to their man because you think that you're more godly than him, then how are you in order as well? That is why you have to have a relationship with God. And the Bible lets us know that a single woman are concerned with the affairs and the things of God. A married woman is concerned with the things of her husband. Right? Because it should follow in that order where God is not left out the picture. Because see, while he submits to God and I'm submitting to him, we're all submitting to God together. Come on, somebody. So listen, so we have to get past this thing of thinking that we got all the answers and we know how these relationships flow and we know how all this going. Because see, I've given you so many scriptures that is not right here in Ephesians, because precept upon precept is the word established. See, if I tell you a thing, then I could go back and build it upon this and build it upon this and build it upon that. But if your household is not at a place where you know God, or you guys have God as the center of your relationship, I'm telling you that what you want to do is you want to establish that thing on love. Because whether you know God for yourselves in these relationships yet, you got to know that you call yourself being in a marriage and being in love. So then why when you base it on love? So then you can take it all back to what the characteristics of love is. Love is long suffering. It means that I'm going to go through some things, but I'm going to stick it out with you. See, too many times, men and women don't know what real love is and don't know what love is because you don't know how to stick it out and commit to see what love is about. Once you feel a hurt or once you feel a pain, you out because you don't think that love hurts. Get that out of your head. Love will hurt sometimes. But how can you know joy if you've never known pain? See, one of the greatest accomplishments I think that my husband and I have had together is because of the simple fact of the matter is that because, for example, when Bay and I was having a disagreement on last week, and he was saying something and I was saying something. Well, we had been going through that for quite some time. The thing that we were disagreeing about, we were going through it quite some time. But for some reason, the atmosphere had changed because I had made up in my mind that I would practice listening more. And he had made up in his mind that he would practice having some more patience, right? So with us making up our mind that this is what we want and this is what we're doing, we were able to get to a point and communicate and realize that it had been a misunderstanding for the longest time because nobody ever took the time to listen to what the other person was saying in relation to that situation. And in doing so, I felt like, wow, it is absolutely possible that if you're talking and conversing and no one's gaining understanding, that something can trickle on for the longest time because of the simple fact that, hey, this thing was not heard because we wasn't listening or I wasn't listening or, the patience wasn't there or whatever. So basically what I'm saying is in establishing that agreement, it came to the fact that, oh my God, this feels good. This feels good to actually work through it, figure it out, and get past it because of the simple fact that you cannot have joy without pain. Now, does that mean that you can't go through things and be hurt and all of that? No, because everything doesn't have to be resolved at that moment. And that's something that he was telling me. He was like, sometimes you want things resolved right then. Everything doesn't have to be resolved at that moment. So in order to know joy, you have to go through some pain. And so instead of people hopping from relationship, getting divorced, saying we can't do this, the point of the matter is that if you're grounded in love, and that's what caused he and I to work it out, to talk about it, because it's grounded in love. So if you don't know God for yourself, and God might not be that threefold part in your relationship, then you have to get past the point of thinking that, look, one, it's going to be worked out all the time right at that moment. Two, you have to ground it in love. So you have to take the necessary steps and precautions to say, this is what we're going to do. And love will make you do that. See, a lot of times people be like, love is not enough. No, true. Love may not be enough to some people, but guess what? Love will make you do the things you got to do to make it work. So I could say I disagree on that. And for those who say, well, love won't pay bills, well, yeah, love will cause you to go out there and get a job to help pay those bills. You hear what I'm saying? So love is the foundation. So love is long suffering. You're going to go through some things. Sometimes love will hurt. Love is gentle. It means that you have to be patient and kind to one another because love is kind. Love is forgiving. You have to learn how to forgive. You have to forgive one another and let it go. Love does not bear a keep cost of wrongs and what you did and hold burdens. No, that's not love. Love causes you to have a heart for the person that you're with. Love causes you to be loving. Let's not forget that, loving altogether. So when it goes back, you have to go back and look at Corinthians. It's Corinthians. I can't remember the verses, but it talks about what love is, right? So I want you to understand that in order to make a relationship work, and the reason why so many relationships are failing is because we're not grounding that relationship in God. We're not grounding that relationships in things that will make that relationship prosper and last. You have to understand that God is love. And so even if you don't know that love as of yet, then if you call yourself in love and fall in love with that person, then that should be part of the equation and it should come easily, right? Because remember, God loved us to save us while we were yet in our sins. That's love. So that's how that comes about. You may not know in the beginning, but love will find you. So threefold cord is not easily broken. We have to bring God into these relationships and get back to the understanding of how a relationship should look and function so that we can make these relationships last. All right, so then 24 said, just as the church is subject to Christ, so also wives ought to be everything to their husbands. 25, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. And in order to make her holy by cleansing her with the washing of water by the word, so as to present the church to himself in splendor without a spot or wrinkle or anything of the kind, yes, so that she may be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as they do their own bodies. Listen to this. He who loves his wife loves himself, for no one ever hates his own body, but he nourishes and tenderly cares for it just as Christ does for the church, because we are members of his body. Okay, so I'm going to hurry up and wrap this up, but what I want to say to you, look how intentional God is about this. He left no room and no error for you to be selfish. It literally says that the husbands should love their wives as they love their own bodies. So if you ever see a man mistreating his wife, you ever see a man not loving his wife, you ever seen a man not being loyal to a wife, not being faithful to his wife, you ever seen a wife do the very same things to the husband that they did that I said about the husbands? Well, that means that there's not a threefold cord there, that there's a lack of understanding, loyalty, respect, security, all of that. You understand what I'm saying? That is why it is important to have that threefold relationship. Because when you learn how to love yourself, then you learn how to love your spouse, right? You can't love somebody and you don't love yourself. Just as the word says, a man who does not love his wife doesn't even love himself. It's like hating himself. That is the have of God. And a woman who is not subject to her husband and loves her husband like Christ loved the church, which is gave it all up for us, then does not love her husband. You supposed to pour everything out to your husband. You're supposed to be of service to your husband. You're supposed to give it all to your husband. My husband is my king. I treat him as my king. You understand what I'm saying? I respect him as so. I may not ever agree on everything that he does. He may not agree on everything that I does. But bringing God into the equation and making him the threefold cord in the relationship based and grounded off of love and his word is what will make a relationship work. Because we're all so far from perfect, right? And then you have to learn your partner love language. You have to know what floats your partner. I love the fact that I'm seen. I love the fact that he knows me. I love the fact that he can tell when I'm hurt. He can tell when something is bothering me. I love the fact that he sees me and he makes me secure and feel safe. And I don't worry about anything when I'm with him. You understand what I'm saying? And vice versa. I know that he feels like a king in my presence. I also know that the word says that it is better to be on a rooftop than be in a house with a complaining and nagging wife, a nagging wife. So when my fiance, I keep calling him a husband. Thank you, God. I'm just gonna keep saying a husband. When he comes home off the road, he wants peace. And anytime he can't find that peace, if we're going through something and we're arguing, I know for a fact that the word is true on that. He would rather be somewhere else than be here arguing. So women, we have to practice allowing that space to be peaceful, allowing that space to be somewhere where they can come home. And then on the flip side, husbands have to practice and make sure that if your wife is responding a certain kind of way, remember, you set the atmosphere, because a wife that feels unheard or not seen or treated a certain kind of way will respond as so. So at that point, we're back to both being accountable to service one another, both being unselfish towards one another. See, if I'm concerned about your feelings and you're concerned about my feelings, then we got it under control. Somebody is going to say the right thing or do the right thing and bring us back into balance. But if you worried about your feelings and you worried about this for selfish reasons and I'm worried about this for selfish reasons and it does not line up with what God says, then we have an imbalance. Then we're going to bump heads, because of the simple fact of the matter is that now, is it grounded on what God says? Is it the two of us in this relationship and God as a threefold cord? Or is it me, you, and her? Or is it me, you, and him? Or is it me, you, and them? In that case, then we got confusion, because it's not a 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kind of thing. 4, it's a threefold cord. And that is why you talk to your husband, you talk to your wife, you talk to each other, not outside influences. That is why you respect one another. That is why you hold tight to one another. That is why you're loyal to one another. That is why you go back to what is the love language in this thing, and you go to the foundation. How would God handle this? What do you check with your own ego and flesh before, when you talking to your partner about something that you feel, because you're being led by the flesh, which there's nothing good in the flesh? So you're being led by Satan and what feels good? Or are you trying to be led by God and what he says, and you take a little pain or you take a little hurt to get to bliss? Because that's what happens. You realize when you do it God ways, peace. So guys, this is the last thing, and then I'm going. It said, this is a great mystery, and I am applying to Christ and the church. Each of you, for this reason, let me backtrack. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two will become one. And the two will become one. And a lot of times people misunderstand. They be thinking like, well, this means I come first. This means the children come first. That means this come first. That means this come first. And we don't prioritize our spouses, right? And we mess up, because the Bible says we become one. And I believe that because you join soul ties. So nothing can come before your spouse or anybody, even though we love our children for the world, we love everybody for the world. And that's a hard pill for people to swallow. And that's why a lot of couples break up and marriages break up too. Sometimes they don't agree with how to raise the children, and they put the children ahead of each other, and then when the children get grown, they leave you, and then you be like, oh, wait a minute. Or the children turn on you, the children cuss you out, the children get to acting funny, and then you realize why God said you're one with your husband and your wife, right? Because he made you as the head, the two, to lead your children and guide your children and to be of service to your children as well, right? And I know that for me, I have always been light. And now let me tell you the difference. What you do not do, young ladies, You do not neglect your children for any man. Never, ever have I, in which you never. Yes, in those cases, that's when the child comes first. You never neglect your children because of selfishness, right? You never do that. And so me, I was very protective of my children, still very protective of my children. And I know that there are fathers that are very protective of their children as well. And you don't put, selfishness ahead of your children when it comes to a woman either. That's why you have to have the right people and spouses in your life, because you both will love your children. You both would say this is what's best for the child. You both would be like, yeah, this is what we need to do. See, that comes back into love and unselfishness, right? So that's another part of it. So it says, this is a great mystery, and I am applying it to Christ and the church. Each of you, however, should love his wife as himself, and a wife should respect her husband. And that's it. That's all that I gave you in a nutshell. Respect your husband, respect your wife, as you will love yourself, and we should be on a road, okay? So listen, this is Dr. Michelle, and I wanted to give you that motivation, that teaching, and that guidance on relationships. Make it a threefold relationship, which is not easily broken. Learn to pray with your spouses. Love to pray for one another. And if you, like I said, you still trying to figure this God thing out, then base it in love. You say you're in love, then guess what? And love will help you to do things differently if you wasn't grounded in love. All right, so this is Dr. Michelle with Thursday Relationship Motivation. You guys be good. Peace.